When we talk about entrepreneurship in beauty, we often picture a very specific setup, which involves a single founder, usually positioned as the visionary, often working against the odds and building something that is meant to scale fast and go far. And what we rarely discuss is how narrow that business model actually is and just how many different ways there are actually of building a beauty brand. And one of those ways, which I think might really appeal to you if you're considering starting or growing a beauty brand, is to work with your family. Now, I'm not talking in the sense of legacy brands or inherited companies, but in the sense of family members choosing to work together and creating something from scratch. Now, this doesn't work for everyone, of course, and you might right now be picturing yourself working with relatives that you would prefer not to see, and you might honestly be shuddering in horror at the very thought. But not everyone feels that way, and it can work exceptionally well. And that's what I want to explore on the podcast today. We're going to be talking about what happens when beauty brands are started by different generations with different skill sets, paired with a deep trust and a deep history. These are relationships that don't reset at the end of a workday, and they come with decisions that carry a very different kind of weight. Now, this idea of creating a beauty brand with family members raises some interesting questions, especially in relation to beauty. How does formulation change when it's shaped by lived experience? What does growth look like when the business has to fit around long-standing relationships as well as commercial ambition? And why do we so rarely see this kind of collaboration represented as a legitimate entrepreneurial model, particularly when women are involved? Today's episode sits with those questions, and it's a good one. So come and join me as I interview two inspiring entrepreneurs and ask them the question, what's it like to start a beauty brand with your family? Welcome to Green Beauty Conversations, in which I challenge the beauty industry to become sustainable, champion independent and green beauty, and encourage you to join me in making beauty better. I'm your host, Lorraine Dallmeier. I'm a chartered environmentalist, biologist, and the CEO of award-winning online organic cosmetic formulation school, Formula Botanica. We have tens of thousands of students in over 190 countries around the world who study with us to become organic beauty formulators and entrepreneurs. Visit our website at formulabotanica.com to try our free online formulation course. And if you want to be the first person to know what's happening in green beauty, make sure you subscribe to this podcast in your favorite podcast app. So in today's episode, I'm joined by Kathy Griswold and Angela Gargano, the mother-daughter co-founders of Lola Arnao Beauty, which is a sustainable skincare brand created for ultra-sensitive skin. The brand was born after Angela struggled to find plastic-free shaving products that didn't irritate her skin, which prompted her and her mother to create their own solution. Kathy, a chef of over 50 years, brings a food-first mindset to formulation, and she applies that same care to ingredient sourcing and simplicity that she has always brought to cooking. Every product sold by Lola Arnao Beauty is handmade by Kathy in their converted barn workshop in Oregon's Willamette Valley, using carefully sourced botanicals and upcycled ingredients, and everything is completely fragrance-free. The brand Lola Arnao is named in honor of their grandmothers, two glamorous women who always took incredible care of themselves, and it's built on slow beauty values, prioritizing purpose, restraint, and thoughtful growth over scale. Hi, Kathy and Angela. How are you both doing?
Hi. Great. Wonderful. Thank you.
It is so lovely to have you both on the podcast. So I guess let's start with some introductions and let's do it one by one because I have two guests with me today, which is lovely. So let's start with Kathy. Could you please introduce yourself?
I am Kathy Griswold, one of the founders of Lola Arnao Beauty. I basically make the product. Angela inspires, is inspiration. As a former chef, I've worked with formulas and recipes and that. So that's what I do.
Amazing. Okay, Angela, now introductions from you. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I co-founded the brand with my mom. The brand began because of my struggles with sensitive skin. And as my mom said, she's been a chef for over 40 years, and she worked a lot with people with food allergies and sensitivities. So it kind of naturally led into helping to formulate some of our products. So she does all of the production. She's the maker behind the brand. And then I guess I'm the marketer behind the brand. I also own a marketing agency called Fresh Take Creative. and work with a lot of other small businesses in terms of marketing. So she's also the shipping department. So we make everything in our renovated barn here in the Willamette Valley of Oregon.
And Angela is definitely the inspiration. She comes up with, we need this, my skin needs this. And then after a lot of research and samples, she gives me feedback. So we're a good team.
And actually we both come from a strong food and wine background. So I was actually a sommelier and worked in wine and actually worked with a lot of wine clients. And again, my mom was a chef. So I think that really inspires our product line because so much of it is really around natural ingredients. And we try to use products that would, in theory, be safe enough to eat.
Amazing. Well, we're going to unpick all of this throughout the episode, but I guess let's start with the basics. What do you guys make and sell? Angela, I'll come to you first on this one.
Yeah, so we make body care for sensitive skin, and then we do have one facial care product as well, and may expand that in the future. But our product line started with a shave bar. So I was trying to find a product for my ultra sensitive skin, and every time I shaved, I got red bumps, itchiness. And I just thought that was what happened when you shaved your legs. Like that was just the normal thing. But I got a little fed up with it. And I remember specifically going to like a big box store and going down an aisle, and the shaving products were the exact same that I had used since I was 14. There really weren't many options. And also I was and am on a quest to use less single-use plastic. And almost every product on the shelves had single-use plastic, when I turned the labels over, I read scary words like butane, which is often used in shaving creams to create the foam. So I didn't buy anything and came home frustrated. And that's how our shave bar was born. My mom went into the kitchen, started to experiment and whip things up. And I experimented on my skin, and we found something that really worked and started sharing it with family and friends. And then from that, our body care line grew. We have a solid lotion bar, which is great for travel, great for dry winter skin like this time of year. We have a body wash bar, some bath soaks, which are a nice alternative to bath bombs, which can be filled with toxic ingredients. And then our one facial product is a French plum oil. And that's something I fell in love with for my skin. And it's really a beautiful kind of one and done product that we fell in love with. So it's a very small product line, and purposely so. We really only sell and make products that we use on a regular basis. And it's also about simplification. So we're kind of small by design.
They sound beautiful.
And with as few ingredients as possible, too. It's like nothing should need a list of 15 ingredients,
Completely understand. And that's very much our ethos here as well at Formula Botanica. And may I say, I love plum oil too, so I totally get where you're coming from. Kathy, I was wondering if you could take us back to the beginning. And, Angela obviously came home. She had this issue with not being able to find a shave product. At that point, what inspired you to go, I know, I'll make one? Like, how did that leap occur?
Well, at first Angela and I both started reading labels and the list of ingredients. And so then it was a matter of just, okay, what is this ingredient? Where is it from? What does it do? Why is it in this bottle or something? That actually took a lot of time to really understand these ingredients. And so I studied these ingredients, and then trying to find the ingredients in a pure form. That was a little difficult also. And then to buy things in small enough quantities to be making small samples. So we made many, many, many small samples. And I think understanding the ingredients is the biggest thing. Like as a chef, understanding the food ingredients, the same thing, understanding the ingredients and how they interact, because some of the ingredients interact in different ways. So I think there was just a lot of studying and research before anything was ever made.
And I think to answer your question of kind of the why, I think it's sort of in our ethos. We both are very entrepreneurial. So if we can't find what we like, I think that's just sort of how we function. We're like, all right, we're going to make it. It's true with food as well. If my mom can't find something at the grocery store that she likes, she's like, all right, I'm going to make it. She makes homemade bread just about every day because, she doesn't want to buy what's at the grocery store. So sort of who we are.
And my mother used to make homemade soap.
Yes, that's true. Grandma, who is one of the names, our brand is named after my grandma, and my great grandma. And so she was definitely a pioneer woman. She would make anything she couldn't find.
I love that. A long lineage of formulators, perhaps, who are obviously leading to this entrepreneurial endeavor that you've both set up. And I'm fascinated by the fact that you have created a mother-daughter brand. And that was very much the angle that I wanted to explore with you today on this podcast as well, because I know that there'll be people listening thinking, I never really thought about going into business with my family. And for some people, that would be the worst thing ever. And for others, that sounds like an absolute dream. So what led to you then deciding to go into business with each other?
So I think we've really always worked together. I mentioned that my mom was a chef, and my mom and dad had an Italian restaurant, kind of a high end. It was a restaurant where people went to celebrate their anniversaries or birthdays. And she literally brought me with her at just a few weeks old. She brought me in a diaper bag, and
we had a nursery in the back.
And a babysitter. And so I grew up in the restaurant, and I grew up working with my family. So it's a very natural thing. I previously owned a yoga studio for about a decade. And when I founded my yoga studio, my whole family was really right by my side. We started it on a shoestring. So I had family members come and help paint, and my mom did payroll and help to clean, like everything. So it's part of who we are. So I think family business is very natural to us. And I think there's also, in a good family relationship, there are shared values. And I think that's one of the things that really makes it work. There are certain things we do not want to compromise on. We're cruelty free. We use as sustainable as packaging as is possible. I think because we share those values, there's never really an argument about that, because the baseline is shared values about how we want to present the brand to the world. So that's a good starting point.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Kathy, how did everyone around you respond when you said we're going into business together to launch a skincare brand? Because I guess maybe your family and friends were already used to you collaborating, but how did everyone react when you said it's now going to be skincare?
Well, I think there were mixed reactions, but we kind of it's like when Angela opened a yoga studio, what are you, crazy, opening up a business? But we've always had confidence in what we're doing. A mixed reaction with family members. Some are very entrepreneurial and they understand, and other people want us to be very secure and safe and not go that route. And that's okay. We respect that also. But I think we're both very entrepreneurial. We can do this. And I think we don't want to fail, but we're not afraid to fail. And if we do, we just pick ourselves up and try something else or do something else. So I think the entrepreneurial spirit is very much in both of us. And we do share values. Like, it was a big thing to have no plastics. Like, we wanted, and how do you go about using less plastic? Well, kind of one little thing at a time. You do this, you do that. We wanted to come up with products with no plastic, because you go down the aisle of any store and just so much plastic.
Yeah.
I don't know how the earth handles it. I don't understand.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
No.
It doesn't. Yeah.
No, I completely understand. And this will resonate as well with our listeners, because there'll be a lot of people listening thinking, I have these values too. So they'll be very inspired by what you're creating here. Can we go back to the period of launching your brand? So I guess you were working on it for a while. You came up with your products. Angela, can you talk me through what happened at the point of launch? Because you have quite a personal story attached to that as well.
Yes. So we spent about a year really from the point that we decided this might be something more than just a fun hobby that we're sharing with friends and family to this is going to be a business. So we spent about a year getting ready for launch, working with a graphic designer. And then when we finally decided to launch the product, we were planning on launching it on a Tuesday. And I had an appointment a few weeks before. And on that Tuesday, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So, not what we had imagined for our launch week, but we decided to kind of push forward and not give up on the dream that we had. And we launched that same week on a Friday. Of course, realistically, going through treatment was really challenging, and it definitely slowed, the launch of our business down. But we learned a lot along the way. And it was, thankfully, I'm 3.5 years out now, and I'm doing well. I'm healthy. But during that process, specifically going through radiation, I was very lucky in that I didn't have to have chemo, but going through radiation takes such a toll on your skin. And my radiation oncologist had suggested that I use calendula oil. So of course we went back to the formulation table, because actually what he suggested was that I use calendula cream. So I started researching the few creams that are on the market for, breast cancer, for radiation. And they all had some of the chemicals that I knew were going to be harsh on my skin. So I started to just use pure calendula oil. And at the end of I had 5 weeks of radiation, 5 days a week. And at the end of that process, the radiation oncologist said that my skin had been the best and had the least damage of any patient he'd been working with that year. So we took that idea and then created our solid lotion bar, which has both calendula and oat oil in it because they're very powerful healing oils. So that was a really profound experience. And I think it also made me even more empathetic to, when we do a pop-up, for example, we'll have women that come up to us and really share their skin issues that they have because of health problems, whether it's eczema and their skin hurts on a daily basis, or maybe they're trying to buy a gift for their mom who just went through cancer. So I feel like having gone through that myself gives me just a greater empathy and understanding. And it also just makes me feel really proud of what we're creating. If we can, it's not just about, I think, the name of our brand is Lola Arnao Beauty, but it's really not just about beauty. It's also really, really about health. Like you should feel good in your skin, no matter what health issues you're going through.
Yes, absolutely. And this, again, will resonate so much with our listeners because I find almost everyone who comes to this independent beauty world very much approaches it from the perspective of health rather than wanting to create some kind of perceived vision of beauty, which I think is very subjective in the modern beauty world. But that's a topic for a different podcast, perhaps. And congratulations as well for, obviously overcoming this because it can't have been easy.
Thank you. No, it was a challenging time, but I'm proud that we kind of went, continued to persevere. I was going to say the other ingredients I really started to notice were the hormone-based ingredients. And of course, one never knows what causes cancer. Like you can drive yourself crazy thinking, was it something I put on my skin? But it is a good feeling to be able to cut those things out and know that I'm taking a step towards preventing recurrence by cutting back on my hormone load with the skincare products I put on my skin.
Yes, absolutely. Kathy, can you talk me through your role day to day in the business? It'd be really interesting to hear what you both do and how you complement each other. So let's start with you, Kathy. Can you walk me through what you do day to day at Lola Arnao?
Okay, on a day-to-day basis, I check orders. And then I'm also the warehouse. we have actually a darling workshop that we converted a barn here. We live on a little 10-acre farm in Oregon, and we renovated half of the barn as a workshop. And I really enjoy working in the workshop. A lot of windows. It's nice. And I check on a daily basis. I check orders, and then I go to the workshop and I wrap them up and label them. We've got a printer and the label, and we've ordered different size boxes. I try to put things in the right size box so we're not using too much even recyclable cardboard.
And you make all the products.
And I make all the products. So some days I'm packaging them, and other days, okay, today I'm going to make the lotion bar. And then I'll spend the day working on that. And then the next day I'll be wrapping that and putting it in containers. So those are, and I really enjoy doing this work also. It's a very pleasant place to work in, and it makes me feel good to do that. And
she has a great view. So we each have a horse, which is how we decided to share this farm. And so she can see the horses out of her window when she's working.
They see me walking to the workshop, and the one on our buckskin will hang his head over the fence and say, basically say hi to me as I'm walking out to the workshop. He knows I'm in there, but sometimes he thinks I'm making him supper, which I'm not.
So that sounds absolutely idyllic. And so not only do you work together, you also live together, right?
We do. Yes.
That makes it even more special. And Angela, what do you do day to day in the business?
So I help with the marketing. I run our marketing and sort of the long-term business planning and strategy. A lot of that is social media, email marketing, and that fits in with what I do in my other job, which is as a digital marketing agency owner. So I have sort of two businesses that I'm working on and, doing things like, again, perhaps making a social media reel, getting my mom to agree to be on camera or something like that. But really, it's sort of the driving the business forward and thinking about how we're going to promote. I think just like many small beauty brands, we are self-funded, and we actually prefer to be that way. We want to keep it small. We talk about slow beauty, and part of that, I think, is also slow growth. It's not our dream to be in Sephora or be in a large beauty store. Our goal is just to have a small, sustainable DTC business. Of course, it needs to be sustainable, and that's a challenge in a market where it's really hard to break through the noise. That's something I struggle with any of my small business clients, including us, is that it's really challenging to break through the noise on Instagram or TikTok because the big guys are spending so much money on ads. So it's thinking of creative ways that we can do that and get the word out to the people that matter. The good thing is with a small business is that, we don't need to reach too many people. We just need to reach the right ones, but certainly a challenge.
And sometimes we'll do a pop-up. Mm-hmm. And so on that day, we have things in big containers and we go to a store and have a pop-up. And that's where we face our customers, eye to eye. And that's how we find out how people like our product, because our customer has sensitive skin. And that's where we get the feedback,
It's great to have those in-person conversations with people. We really learn a lot each time about what they're looking for. And that's how we've developed new products, again, albeit very slowly, but those are fun. We enjoy doing them.
Oh, they're so invaluable. I mean, we say this as well in our courses. We always say, don't try and sell online until you've sold face to face, because you have to be able to convince someone who stood opposite you that your product is the best. And the experience you've had from that sounds absolutely brilliant. I find it really interesting. You're working together, you're mother-daughter, you're living together. Do you ever find that there's everything spilling over into each other? Do you find yourselves talking about the business over the dinner table? What about holidays? How does this work? How do you have boundaries between work and play?
It's challenging. We have three businesses that we're running. My mom, in addition to this, does catering locally for some wineries. And then I have my marketing agency, and then we have Lola. So it definitely does spill into daily life. But I think the good thing is there's also an understanding. Entrepreneurship can be very lonely, but when you do have backup, and you mentioned family, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, and so did my mom. My grandparents had a farm growing up. So it was really a very entrepreneurial endeavor. So as much as it can be challenging for it to spill into every aspect of your life, you also have support, which is nice. It's kind of an odd path, right? For someone who might know a 9-to-5 job, entrepreneurship is 24/7, and it just is.
And there are highs and lows. There are highs when we have a good week of sales or we have beautiful feedback. And then there are days or weeks when, wow, is this going to make it? We look at each other. Is this going to make it? Are we going to keep doing this after a rough week? And we always have said, yes, we're going to continue doing this. So we have each other's support also.
Yeah.
It's it can be very challenging. It can be, you can have a rough week. But it's the highs that get us through. It's that person who says, you changed my skin, my skin used to hurt and now it doesn't. And that keeps us going.
My mom is the more positive of the two of us. She's the one that's it's going to be okay. I'll have the moments of panic. But then I think we balance each other. I'm pretty good at dreaming big and, thinking about how we're going to move this forward. But she's definitely the one on the days when I'm feeling the pressure. She's the one that's it's going to be okay. And at the end of the day, I think with entrepreneurship, we can look at it if we fail, if the business fails, it's a personal failure, and it's not. And I think when you've grown up in it and seen iterations of different businesses, and I know my mom doesn't, we don't wrap our self-identity up in the success of the business. It is something, and that's very freeing, right? It's something that we are trying and doing, and we want to be successful, and we'll put everything into that. But at the end of the day, it's not as important as our health. It's not as important as our relationship. It's not as important as family relationships and friend relationships. So it's taking it seriously without letting it be everything.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Absolutely. What advantages do you think then that a family-run brand might have that outsiders often underestimate?
It's a really good question.
I think we really understand each other, and we've had many, many, many conversations about the use of plastic and how we want to use fewer ingredients and what kind of ingredients and where we want to source them. we have so much contact with each other that we've had many conversations.
Yeah. And I think a small family run business, and I see this even in other industries with the businesses that I help with marketing, you can also pivot a lot faster. If something doesn't work, we don't have, it's just easier. We're not like a big ship. We're a little tiny boat that can pivot and change directions. And I think there's something really good about that. So we can experiment with something. And if it doesn't work, we can throw it out the window. It's fine. Whereas big brands don't have that ability because they've invested so much. And I think that's something we've learned through different businesses. Like, don't invest a ton in startup, like start lean and then, pivot if you need to. In fact, even our packaging, we have very beautiful packaging specifically for our shave bar. But that was the one thing that in retrospect, I almost wish we had spent a little bit less on it, bought a little bit less, because that allows you to pivot. And I've learned that in multiple businesses. If you start a restaurant, don't invest millions of dollars in the design, like see if people like the food first. And I think this is the same idea. So I think that is an advantage that small businesses have. Also, another big advantage is that people want to purchase from small business. In this age of Amazon and feeling like we can vote with our dollar, I know that I would personally rather support a small business in any industry.
And we do that.
Yeah, we do our best to do it. And I think with all of this, whether it's small business or trying to cut back on plastic, it's also really important to say that you don't have to be perfect. So, for example, we have our body care line. There is not even a bit of plastic in any of it. But for our plum oil, it comes in like the standard little black bottle. And there's a tiny bit of plastic on the top, on the lid. But for us to sustainably offer that product, there's really very little other in the way of packaging. So we do our best to have as little plastic, make it as sustainable as possible, but we're not perfect. And I think, with sustainability, you have to do your very best, but you also have to be transparent about that. For me, I think it's a very concentrated product. So I'd rather use that and not use 15 different serums and moisturizers. I feel like that's more sustainable.
I mean, you obviously know each other extremely well since birth for you, Angela. You obviously live together, you work together. Is there anything you've learned about each other that you didn't already know before you started working together on Lola Arnao?
That's a great question.
That's a tricky one.
We know each other pretty well.
I think it just more underlined some of the things that I know about my mom, like, again, her positivity and just how supportive she is.
And we check in with each other. Are you okay with this? Are you okay?
Yeah. I mean, we certainly disagree. It's not, no relationship is perfect. And there are times when we disagree. But I think at the end of the day, and this is something that I really grew up with, is knowing that the relationship comes above the business. I remember I grew up in a family restaurant, and I remember I was off in the front of the house. So I was the hostess going to a table, and the table I'd gotten in a little bit of an argument with the customer, which you never do. I was raised, the customer is always right. But the customer had said something very rude to me. And I went in the kitchen and mentioned that to my dad, thinking that he would be upset with me. And he came out, but the customer had been disrespectful to me. He came out and he asked the customer to leave, which gave a very clear message to me I was like 16, at an early age, that it was less important that the customer spent money at the restaurant, and it was more important that I felt safe and okay. So I think that's a really important part of family business and working together. Like, get your priorities straight. The business will come and go, but the family relationships have to come first.
Absolutely. And good on your dad for saying that, because the customer isn't always right, personally, I think.
Right. Of course. We come from a hospitality background, so we always try our best, of course.
Absolutely.
But yes, there's also respect. And,
So how do your customers feel when they learn that you're a mother-daughter brand? Is this something that excites them? Is this something that people talk to you about?
Well, we definitely get a lot of mother-daughter customers. So it's interesting. I don't know if it's just the energy, but at pop-ups, we've had a lot of people coming to buy a gift for their daughter or their mother. So I think that's really sweet. And I think it's like the mother-daughter relationship is also really about, it goes to the broader issue of women supporting other women. So in this case, it's a mother-daughter, but we also work with a lot of amazing women. The graphic designer we worked with was a woman. We try to work with just suppliers and people in general that share our values, and we try to support other women. So I think it becomes bigger than just mother-daughter, and it's about just women supporting women and lifting each other up.
And I think how your skin feels also is kind of an intimate thing, that they feel more comfortable talking to two women, mother-daughter.
Yeah. It almost has a sort of nurturing feel to it, doesn't it?
Yes, I think that's right.
I think that's very much my mom's ethos, with cooking. That's how she shows her love, right? She's always trying to to nurture people by cooking for them. And I think it's why she chose her profession. But that really spills over into the skincare. It is a way for us to nurture. It's about more than, just making a profitable business. Although we would, like that as well.
Yes. So a lot of the people who listen to this podcast either have a beauty brand or want to start a beauty brand, or are just very interested in beauty brands in general. So if there's anyone listening who's thinking, gosh, I would love to go into business with a relative or a family member, is there any advice that you would give them?
Yeah, there's lots of advice. I would say that one thing is just to be very clear from the beginning. So have a lot of discussions about, what the expectations are and who does what. And I think that's the first one. And I think the second one is almost always to start small. We both have other jobs and careers that help us fulfill this dream. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's good to start small and it gives you a little bit of less fear of failure, which I think you really need to be sort of fearless when you're an entrepreneur. You need to not be afraid to jump in and make a mistake and take a risk. But that can feel a lot safer when you also, are working on something else. In our case, we have 3 entrepreneurial things. So I don't know if that's quite right. But, you can start small. You can start, if you have this dream, you can start on the weekends. You can start with one product. A lot of people feel like they need to have a whole product launch. And then I think this is something that I've learned with entrepreneurship for sure. There's a great book called The E-Myth, which I would recommend anyone reads. And it's about how we think that, we like to cook, therefore we open a restaurant. We like to bake, so we open a bakery. But actually the running of a business is so much more than that. You need to ask yourself, do you like to be an HR expert? Do you like to do marketing? Do you like to do bookwork? Those are the things that are important. Understanding that you will do less and less of the thing that you love when you start a business. I actually love that piece of it. I love the running of a business. It's really fun and exciting for me. So I think, we become a good team because you like the business part of it too.
I like the business part of it, but you also need to mop the floor and keep things clean. And I think you need an open mind if you're working with family, and you need to take constructive comments well. They can't be defensive. You need to think about what they're saying. And not be afraid. If I make, like making the shave bar, for example, the first 100 samples did not turn out. And Angela would say, this doesn't work. And she'd tell me why or something. It would not have been good to have been defensive about it. No, it's like, you have to be open-minded and you have to be able to pivot. Angela mentioned pivot.
Yeah.
You need to
I actually just remembered a funny story. So my mom is never great at measuring things. It's kind of a joke between us. But we were planning on doing the shave bar we wanted to offer it for the holidays in like a nice bamboo container. We had a specific container in mind, but she mismeasured it. And we ordered quite a few of these containers. I don't know if it was like 500 containers, but then we kind of gave up on them. They sat on the shelf for a while, but then I was like, we put money in these. We can't return them. We need to come up with an idea. They had been stamped with Lola Arnao. So she actually came up with something that became now a product that we sell, which
we need something that fits in these containers.
I was looking for bath bombs to give as a gift. And that's how she came up with our Silky Soak bath bombs. And I think that's a really good example. Like you have things like that happen. I could name 30 examples that have happened, over the course of the different businesses we've run. And you have to get creative and just think outside the box a little bit. And it turned into something wonderful.
Yeah, it may have been like centimeters instead of inches or something,
That's classic my mom.
I love it. Well, some good advice in there for anyone thinking, gosh, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, there will be mistakes. There will be problems. There will be days that are difficult, but they're also the highs, and a progression and a positive progression of what you're doing
Yeah. I think the last thing I'll say about entrepreneurship too is I think there's this idea that, it's security working for someone else and entrepreneurship is less secure. But I have to say there are things like going through a health journey, that I had been working for someone and quit to start Lola, and being able to have my own freedom over my own schedule was worth so much because I was able to get the treatment that I needed. I was lucky that I had insurance, but I feel like you have that freedom when you're an entrepreneur, and that's really important. So don't be afraid. That's the last piece of advice. Don't be afraid of it because there is no security in anything really. You build your own security.
Great advice. And lots of people will be taking notes, I'm sure, and thinking, which family member maybe they could start a business with. So thank you both so much for coming on the podcast. I guess the final question I have is, where can people find out more about you? Where can they buy your products?
Yes. So please check out our website. It's lolaarnao.com. I know that's challenging to spell, but it's LOLAARNAO.com, named after my grandma and great grandma. And you can purchase us online. We're in a few teeny tiny retailers here in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, but for the most part, we're online. Check us out there. We have a blog with lots of skincare tips, and we'd love to hear from you if you're interested in learning more.
Amazing. We will include all of those links in the show notes, which are below this episode. So I'm sure lots of people will be clicking through to you now and coming to follow you as well on all the socials, which will be in there too. Angela, Kathy, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it.
And all the very best with Lola Arnao. I can't wait to see what you do with it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode. Would you ever consider working with your family to start a beauty brand? Leave me a comment on our social channels as both the Formula Botanica team, and I love hearing from you. And if you want to hear some more episodes about some of the topics that we discussed today, please do delve back into the podcast archives. So some great examples include episode 237, in which I interviewed Leah Yu of Crave Beauty on her outlook on what slow beauty represents. Now, Leah is a powerhouse entrepreneur and definitely someone to listen to if you want to understand how you can embrace the principles of slow beauty. Or go and listen to an early episode, episode 87, in which I interviewed Formula Botanica graduates Elsie and Dominica of By Bee Beauty, who are very good friends who went into business together. And to be honest, they probably feel like their family nowadays. Their interview is another great insight into what it takes to work with a co-founder. There's a wealth of information in our old episodes, and I do encourage you to go back and listen to them. So thank you for joining Kathy, Angela, and I for this latest episode of Green Beauty Conversations. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave us a 5-star review so that other people can enjoy these conversations too. And make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever your favorite podcast app is, and stay tuned for the next episode. Follow Formula Botanica at Formula Botanica on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn. We're everywhere. And come and give me a follow at Lorraine Dallmeier on Instagram and LinkedIn. Visit our website at formulabotanica.com and sign up for our free online formulation course today.